Oh, now it says we're live again.
I really appreciate being invited to come and participate today. And I view myself as being part of a broader disability rights movement. I hope that the work that I'm doing in collaboration with other people is really helping us to advance our movement, and we're building off of the successes that we've had. Those of us with disabilities and friends and families and others clearly understand that discrimination is something that we are experiencing every day, and that discrimination may be more significant based on your socioeconomic status, your educational background, your race, your religion. The current pandemic that we're all going through right now, and Emily, as Rick said, has written an article about this, is of major concern, particularly for those of us with more significant disabilities. Should we in fact contract the virus and need to go to the hospital, that our lives will not be considered equal to others. So Emily, why don't you?
Thanks, Judy. So I'm the editor-in-chief of a website called Rooted in Rights. We're a platform that amplifies authentic narratives and stories of the disability experience.
I started out as a photographer, and I was a fashion photographer in New York City. I also lived in Milan and Paris. But I was always really frustrated as a photographer and as an artist because I was always told who was beautiful. As an artist, I don't see beauty just on covers of magazines. I see beauty absolutely everywhere around me. So I decided to use that talent and the influence and the camera and photography and portraiture to see beyond difference, to see beauty and the richness in human diversity.
There are a couple of things that we were going to be discussing. One is the film Crip Camp. This was shown at Sundance, and it was originally supposed to be seen 5 times, and it was shown 12. And I think one of the stories that we heard from viewers was, why have they not known this story? Why do people not know about the disability rights movement? I think there are many reasons for it. One, of course, is that there's not enough documentation that's publicly being shared, like Crip Camp is doing right now. What does discrimination really feel like? And what does it feel like when you really are able to enter the world where having a disability is a part of who you are? People don't see it as something which is all consuming, just like we don't want gender or race or sexual orientation or religion or other things to be the all-consuming aspect of who we are.
You know, my dream world would be a world where I didn't have to, necessarily be this very public, out and about, constant teachable moment. But right now, the very act of existing in a disabled body seems to be this sort of political statement that we're making. We focus so much on disability as a diagnosis when really it's not about medicalizing it. It's about recognizing that society is putting these barriers in place and, in so many ways disabling us. And that's not to say that the diagnosis is not an important part and that there aren't medical issues that accompany disability. I have this motto that if you want the world to be accessible to the disability community, then we can make our stories and experiences more accessible to the world. And doing that means telling our stories.
So Rick, give us a little bit of information about how you work on helping people express themselves through photography.
That's kind of pretty much all I know how to do is photography. So I use it as extensively as I possibly can to create an environment, but an environment where all beauty is seen, is embraced and celebrated. All of a sudden you don't see this, or you see humanity, and you see life, and you see beauty and energy.
Are there any films that people can watch?
We did a film called On Beauty. And On Beauty follows the story of positive exposure and 2 of our amazing ambassadors. One is a young woman who has a birthmark by Ladau across her face, but she tries to cover up her beauty mark, but she does it because she's afraid of what people will say and how they stare at her. And it's watching her journey to finally embracing that beautiful birthmark that's hers and uniquely hers. The other is a young woman who has albinism or albino in Africa, and she's creating opportunities to really kind of help the community understand and celebrate her albinism. And she won the Nelson Mandela Young African Leadership Award, and she took the film to the Obama White House as well. It won the Audience Choice Award at Chicago International Film Festival. So On Beauty is online. Thank you. And we have a lot of other films called Frame. We created this series of films for healthcare providers in training, and Frame stands for Faces Redefining the Art of Medical Education, and provides an opportunity in medical training for individuals, healthcare providers in training, to hear about a certain condition, but as presented by someone that lives in that with that condition themselves or their family. So placing front row and center in medical education humanity.
The thing about Judy is, I knew who she was long before she knew who I was. She was the sort of, figurehead to me, and, someone who I could look up to from a distance. And then I realized the thing that I love so much about Judy is that, she doesn't make you feel like there's superiority in terms of generation when it comes to the disability rights movement, because there can't be. We need to be a unit. We need to continue the work together. And so Judy's work shows what I hope to show with my work, which is that, even if we have different perspectives, let's find a way to combine those and work together to tell our stories and make a broader impact and really move the needle forward. So
when we're looking at some of the issues that we've dealt with over the years, like the formation of the legislation for the Americans with Disabilities Act, we've seen how it was essential for us to come together to really not only talk about the kinds of discrimination, but with Section 504, we needed basic things like, what's the definition of disability? Partly it's helping make sure that disabled people know who they are, feel proud about who they are, and can really become more integrated in our societies as equal members of society.
What advice would you give to so many of our communities that are just forming their own skills as a public advocate, speaker, and game changer like yourself and like Emily?
Feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's certainly not something that I came up with, but it is a quote and a piece of wisdom that I've internalized. But sometimes conversations about disability rights and accessibility and recognizing that multi-marginalized people are especially dealing with oppression and ableism is not going to be a comfortable conversation. No one ever accomplished anything by not taking a risk and doing something that felt a little bit scary at the time. You're not alone. You might feel like you are in the moment. You might feel scared. You don't know who to turn to, but you're not alone. So feel that fear and keep going.
I also think that it's important for people to try to meet other disabled people. Looking in your community to see if there are organizations or an organization that you may want to go to meetings with and begin to be able to come together to discuss an agenda for change. Another issue is social media. There's so many different groups out there that people can participate in.
One of my favorite, venues for where the disability community really does indeed convene and become a community is on Twitter. Even just typing in the hashtag disability Twitter will help you find a lot of people who have different disabilities who are having conversations.
We need to be speaking up against concerns, legitimate concerns about what's going on with the possible failure of providing treatment for disabled people. But we also need to be looking at what's going on in education. Are disabled children getting the education that they need? Is this yet another excuse for them not to be getting the services they need? Thank you, Rick, very much. Thank you, Emily. And thank all of you who had the patience to jump on and off.
Thank you. Bye, Emily. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.